This is actually the thing I wanted to transition to. There is the
Yeah.
question of, Harden was, I believe, on the bench, yeah, right?
Yes.
Against the
Yep.
Blazers. He was there. He was sitting down, watching the game. There is this idea that maybe he'll come back on Thursday. I don't know. All I'm saying is, regardless of how Harden, if he comes back, right, and how he might be incorporated into this team, I imagine it's not a long-term thing. I imagine they're still working to get him moved. So my question to you is, do they need to ask for not a king's ransom? They're not asking for a king's ransom in the first place, but like they don't need that quote unquote package to get a superstar because of how good this team looks. Do you agree with that notion that like they actually don't need that much in return for a Harden trade because this team already has most of the goods to be very, very good this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not going to suddenly see how these first 3 games went and be like, oh, okay, we'll actually settle for this Clippers package of, 1 pick and no Terrence Mann because Terrence Mann is untouchable. Like, I think their asking price is going to remain what it is. But
and
they're
to be honest, the asking price is fair. Like I do think it's a pretty fair asking price. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because you can look back and say, okay, well, James Harden's 34. He's on an expiring contract. He's going to want a new long-term deal. Yeah. And when the Sixers traded for him 2 years ago or like a year and a half ago, it was the same thing. He was on an expiring contract. They thought he was going to pick up his player option. He for quote unquote forgot to as part of
forgot to mail it in, right?
Right, as part of the trade. So it was a potential 4-month rental, and they gave up 2 draft picks, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond for him. Yeah. Like, I don't think 2 picks or a pick and a swap in Terrence Mann, which I forget. I think it was Sam Amick or Jake Fisher. It's hard to remember who reports what these days. But if it's 1 pick, 1 swap, and Terrence Mann and expiring contracts for James Harden, I feel like that's reasonable, and I feel like the Clippers are the one. I can understand why they're reluctant to do so, but it's not the Sixers' problem. And I think come December 15th, there will be a lot more guys who are eligible to be traded, and I would imagine, that's kind of what I wrote about this morning at Forbes Sports. It was like the start of the season, this first week of the season, really, it could have gone better for the Sixers. They could have beaten the Bucks on opening night, and that would have been great. But otherwise, could not have gone much better for their decision to be patient with him because they, as you said, they look really good. They're 2-1, and there are other teams already, like the Chicago Bulls in particular, who appear to be in total disarray 3 games into the season. And I think
very shaky. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of the thing that Daryl Morey is banking on is that, everyone feels good in the offseason, or most teams feel good in the offseason. You're optimistic about, oh, this guy's going to tape Galip, or we signed this guy, we traded for this guy, it's going to go so well. And then the season starts, and theoretical turns into actual, and sometimes theoretical is a lot rosier than the actual. So, do we get to December 15th or January 15th where, the Bulls who are like, oh, we're not going to rebuild, we're not going to blow it up, we're just going to retool. Well, what if they remained on this shaky ground for the next 2.5 months? Do they come to reconsider that decision? Because if so, DeMar DeRozan might be on the market. Maybe Zach LaVine is on the market. We'll see how this evolves over the next few weeks and months. But I don't think the Sixers should be in any rush to trade Harden. And I frankly think they should have him on a pretty short leash. Like, we've seen the Harden playbook, his way to force his way out of Houston and Brooklyn was play well for a while and then just stop caring and loaf around the court until the team was just like, okay, we are just exasperated. We don't want you around anymore. I think as soon as he starts showing signs of that, just put him on the bench. Like, you don't need him to do this. You don't have to tolerate any nonsense for him because you've proven that you're totally fine without him. And I actually think from Harden's perspective, if he wants to force the trade, I don't know if he's going to be able to successfully force it to the Clippers unless they up their.
He should play better. He should play well. Yeah,
the
goal should be yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but if he shows that he's willing to buy into Nick Nurse's system and is not just, I'm going to commandeer the ball and I'm going to dribble for 16 seconds and then launch a step back 3 without, maybe I pass it one time or maybe I don't. If he's willing to move off the ball, I think one of the reasons the offense has been so good so far is the two-man chemistry between Maxey and Embiid. When Maxey kicks it to Embiid, he's not done moving. He's running around screens still, and they have two-man chemistry that even Embiid and Harden did not, because when Harden kicked the Embiid the ball, it's like, all right, I'm going to give it to you, and you can either go post up or just, if it's on a short roll, then great, we're just going to run the pick and roll, and you're going to get it, and you're going to score right away. But if I kick it to you and you're posting up, I'm done moving. I'm just going to park on the perimeter. Maxey is still running around screens. Like, this is a souped-up version of what they used to have with the Embiid JJ Redick two-man game or the Embiid Seth Curry two-man game, except Tyrese Maxey.
Handoffs, man. It's the handoffs. Like the thing about Maxey is that he's so good at turning a corner that he can be in a pick and roll and he can kind of get over his guy, but also he can throw it into the post for Embiid or high post area, which Embiid loves, and then from there dribble handoffs, right? Cut around him, and I think that is something that helps Maxey excel so much. And we've seen that without Harden. I wonder how much thrusting Harden into that will sort of mess things up. And look, Harden's still a talented player. We still know what he can bring. But ultimately, there is a world where this team looks really, really good without him for the next whatever amount of time that he's not playing. They bring him back. Maybe he buys in, maybe he doesn't, but maybe they look different and don't look as good as they did beforehand. And then there's trade discussions that happen once December 15th happens and there's more guys available. Once January 15th happens and there's more guys available. And then there's a trade and we look back and it's like, okay, there's Norm Powell and Terrence Mann on this team, added on to the fact that they already have this nucleus. Like, they haven't played with James Harden for the first 3 games, and they have an 8-9 man rotation. Throwing a guy like Norm Powell in there, who is one of the best bench scorers in the league. Throwing a guy like Terrence Mann in there, who's like a utility knife on defense. And then you have maybe an extra pick or 2. I think that really sets up the Sixers to do excellent in the playoffs. Not because of addition minus whatever the whatever the saying is. I can't remember.
Addition by subtraction.
Thank you. Addition by subtraction. Yeah. Not because of that, but because of the sense that they look good without him. They have a different identity without him, and adding these different pieces, whatever they may be, maybe it's DeMar DeRozan, right? Who knows? That actually makes them better. And I wonder how you feel about that. Like, do you think that this team with the types of players that I just mentioned might actually look better than it does with James Harden instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, it comes down to Harden's buy-in, I think. If he is willing to buy into what Nick Nurse is selling, which seems like a very, very long shot at this point, but on the off chance that he is actually willing to move off the ball on occasion, he did, to his credit, fired more catch and shoots than he did in years past last year. Like he said it was a huge adjustment for him because he's been on ball, for his entire Houston tenure. You would think he would have started to do that more in Brooklyn, but we'll forget about that for now. So he did adapt his game to some extent last year, but this is his opportunity to do so again. And I think the more that he can prove he is malleable is going to make it him more attractive to other teams. Because I think if other teams are trading for him thinking, okay, we get him, but we're going to have to play his specific style, which, was really effective.
And probably have to pay him,
Right.
I mean, right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, that style was very effective for a long time, but he's not quite the same player. I don't know that he can do it on a game-to-game basis like he could in his prime. We see these blow-up games, games 1 and 4 of the Boston series last year. Like he still has that potential to single-handedly win a game for you, but he also has the potential to shoot like 2 of 11 and have 8 turnovers and score 7 points and like be the reason why you lose. So you don't want your offense to be so Harden centric. And then, there's the Stephen A. Smith report from a couple weeks ago where he said, Houston was really in on Harden. And then Harden said, hey, I want to come back and I want to be the scoring champ. And then Houston was like, actually, we're going to go with Fred VanVleet. Thank you. So, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, That's the concern. Like, does
It's telling.
Harden?
Well, it's that if that is true, that's telling where his
Yeah,
mind is at, right? It's
yeah,
not invested in trying to buy in, like you said, to change how he plays or how he's supposed to look on the court with a guy like Joel Embiid and a guy like Tyrese Maxey beside him. It's very Harden centric, right? He's
yeah.
focused on himself. He's focused on getting the money that he wants to, whatever. Okay, I would love to see how the Sixers look in May, in April, right? Because it's all fun and dandy right now. Maxey looks incredible. Joel Embiid looks great. But I think ultimately what I'm looking for is, hey, 28 weeks from now, 29 weeks from now, how does this guy, how does the team in general look under Nick Nurse? And it's going to be interesting to see.